Welcome in to episode 2 of the Formula Owned by Americans podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Finley, along with my wonderful co-host, Mr. Stephen Harris. Stephen, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited for episode number 2 and continuing on this path here. We got a good season going already, so it's exciting.
Yeah, it is really exciting, and I think we hit on it in the first episode that it does seem like some of the changes that Formula One did this past year have really amped the racing and mixed the field. So that is definitely something that is exciting. I know last week we were trying to follow up the exciting race from Saudi and do the podcast, and we were going to do it. And for listeners, we were actually going to do it a lot sooner than now. But last Wednesday night, we had some storms roll through Alabama. My power was blinking, and so we punted, and we just now been able to get down to talk about all the excitement that has gone
hmm
on the past week in Formula One. But it does allow us to talk about a very noteworthy event. And Stephen, I don't know if you realized it or not, but as we were punting the recording from last week,
hmm
news came out about a very important race that will be held in America, and that is in Las Vegas. What are your initial reactions?
My initial reaction was I wonder where they're going to have the race because I felt like it's Vegas. Everybody knows about the Strip, but they also have other areas that they could put a race together. And hopefully that it was on the Strip. So once I found out where the track location actually was, I was beyond ecstatic. I think it's going to be quite the spectacle, and just I'm very very excited to see it come together. And hey, another race in America, which is awesome. It just kind of goes to show the growing desire for Formula One in America, and it's kind of cool to be a part of that and see that. So
I
how
totally
about
agree. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Stephen, on all those points, especially where the race was going to be held,
hmm
because I feel like there were just races of iconic nature, and I think of Monaco first off of where it is. I
hmm
think I think as time continues, maybe Azerbaijan will be in that same instance due to the
hmm
historic nature of where it's being hosted. Also, Singapore. I think Singapore is one of
hmm
those racetracks that I think, given time to continue to build on its brand, I think it will be the same type excitement and
I,
venue.
yes, I agree.
And I feel like in America, we have just kind of half-assed things a little bit. I think we saw that with IndyCar going to Nashville. Um,
Yes.
I think in some ways, I don't want to go ahead and start pouring water on it since they've not even had a race there. But Miami is a little bit in the same instance because they're building a pond
Yes.
to put some boats in a pond in a parking lot to give it a feel.
hmm
I it that's just like, come on. You're in
We're
Miami. Like, figure out a way to have it go down Ocean Boulevard.
exactly. Yes.
So for us to be able to have this race in Las Vegas on the strip at night, I think this will elevate the American brand of Formula One
hmm
to that crown jewel of possibly like a Monaco.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely, I mean, the venue of just where it's going to be at, it's just going to create such a spectacle. Probably, maybe with the exception of Monaco, maybe one of the most spectacular, races to watch. On TV with all the overhead shots and stuff like that. I think it might actually, be right up there with Monaco. So, yeah, I'm just very excited to see how it works out, and hope it works out well for Formula One, and continues to grow the brand here in America as well. So I'm I'm very excited.
Yeah, definitely, definitely pumped about that race in
Yes.
Vegas, and I will actually be in Vegas a couple weeks prior to the race, so it'll be interesting to see like if they've already started like setup and putting the barricades up. So
Yeah.
that'll be
Yeah.
cool to
Definitely.
see. Um,
Definitely.
but yeah, any other thoughts
Uh,
on Vegas or anything else?
yeah. I mean, kind of with Vegas, where I'm starting to see a trend where you take Jeddah for example, where we were just at last week. And you're starting to see these ultra fast street circuits come about. Even Australia is changing up their track a little bit to make it faster. And I was kind of beginning to wonder if like this is a trend that we're seeing, to where um, we're going with these super fast street circuits that are bumpier, that have concrete walls right next to drivers. Where, take Monza for example, is all very fast track, one of the fastest ones in the or in Formula One, but it has plenty of runoff space. You can have somebody go off track and not hit a wall or anything like that. Unlike kind of what we saw with Schumacher last week at Jeddah, and kind of putting it in the wall, and end up knocking himself out of the race altogether with that. So I guess it's just, as this trend continues, do you feel like there's a potential of the safety of the drivers being kind of pushed back, um, to where there's going to become conflict? And then, could this create a problem long term, I guess, as far as scheduling goes, to where drivers are, saying, what about our safety and that type of thing? So, since you have more of a historical perspective of things, I thought I'd kind of pose that question to you a little bit and kind of get your thoughts.
Yeah, I just from a historical context, there's always been safety issues, and safety issues back in the 60s and 70s and or even 50s for that matter were a lot heightened because you had guys essentially dying every race weekend for probably in the 50s. 60s
Hmm.
that started to scale back some, and in the 70s even scale back some more, but there was an incident in, I think it was 1975 Spanish Grand Prix, where they almost boycotted the race because of possible safety issues, and they just had, I think, the Armco barriers up that were basically, there was a gap from the road to where the barrier would be, and so I mean basically if somebody went off, you could have a decapitation type incident. And I
Jeez.
think there was even some other issues that weekend that involved some spectators being killed due to debris. So so you have all these instances over the course of time in Formula One, and they've worked really, really hard. I mean, I think the last death we saw in a race car, um, obvious in GP2 was Antoine Hubert,
Hmm.
but then previous to that was oh, his name's slipping.
In Japan, I can't think of his name
Yeah,
either.
he's
Jules.
yeah, Jules Bianchi, which I think is Charles Leclerc's godfather.
Yes. Yeah.
But so there's been a tremendous amount of safety that has been born into the sport. But from a track standpoint, I think Jeddah was really the first one that kind of was one that took me back a little bit because it's so confined, and
Hmm.
there's so many blind corners. I think that's the thing about Jeddah that makes it so um, I guess scary in some
Yeah,
instances, right? I mean, because
yeah.
they even in the TV they talk about, even in the commentary they talk about the blind corners and knowing where you are, and guys being having to be in different in different positions as they are slower, so they're
Hmm.
not getting run into. And so I've actually surprised that we've not seen more instances in Jeddah due to the blind corners. But overall, like when you look at a track like Melbourne, there's a tremendous amount of runoff. Um,
Yes.
so even though they're taking, I think they took out a chicane, they added some
Hmm.
DRS zones. I don't have any concerns about a track like Melbourne.
True.
You've had some big or some big crashes there. I think one of them 2002 with Ralph and Rubens Barrichello, where Ralph early in the race, and that can happen in any race. Wheels touched, Ralph went
Hmm.
over, and
Hmm.
then a few years later, you had in 2000, I think 15, where Alonso did his barrel roll and
Yes.
was able to crawl out. So I think you
Yes.
have some instances like that, and that's those type incidences can occur anywhere. But I wouldn't put Melbourne in that. And I'm not sure yet about Vegas because I don't know what I know. There's been some renderings of the track, but I don't know exactly what the track will look like just yet in the runoff areas. So,
Hmm.
but I but I do think safety is a concern for Formula One and their drivers. But the Jeddah track to me is an outlier because even if you look at Monaco, Monaco's been around for so long, and you've had instances like what Mick Schumacher went through this past week, Jensen Button. I think it's back in like 2007, 2008, something like that. He had an incident in Monaco during, might have been qualifying, where he got a concussion and he was out for the race. So you just have those instances on those smaller, but no, I don't think it's a growing trend where we're going to see like the level of safety being pushed. At least that's my hope. Do you have any other thoughts on that? Just
Uh, yeah, not really. No, I just kind of wanted to pose that question to you, just given more of your historical approach to it. But and that's a great point with Jeddah. It's really more the blind corners more than anything, and Vegas doesn't have that. Azerbaijan doesn't have that issue, and Singapore as well. So it really is kind of, you know, as you said, that it's kind of like, yeah, you're right. It really is kind of a one-off when it comes to the grid or to the series as a whole. So yeah, I agree with you.
so speaking about Jeddah, I think we need to. I think there's a couple things that we can talk about in regards to Jeddah. One, I thought the race actually was a fairly decent race again. I think we were able to see that dynamic racing that they hoped for as they brought in these new regulations. What were your thoughts on the racing from Jeddah?
Yeah, I thought it was a great race as well. Definitely has, another um, another race that we had some really good action. So I think the new car and the concept of that has worked out, and I think we still have some issues as far as cars bouncing around, but
Mhm.
that's probably something that's going to get figured out throughout the year, and different tracks are going to have different results on that too, I think. But yeah, I think that overall the racing was really good. We had several battles that were very interesting to watch. We had the Alpine drivers going at it
Oh yeah,
for
they were going
early
really
on.
hard.
Yeah, and then you had Leclerc and Verstappen going back and forth too later on in the race for the win, really, and really all the way up to the last lap even. So, yeah, I thought we had a really good race overall. Really, a lot of highlights there, but yeah, that was my favorite part was seeing the back and forth and everything. So, what did you think about kind of like with Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc later on in the race, kind of almost gamifying, if you will, the DRS, maybe a little cat and mouse game that they kind of had going. We kind of saw a little bit of that in Bahrain, but I thought that it was more noticeable here in Jeddah.
Yeah, it really was. I knew there was, when they were going down, I think it was the second time, I knew that if Max got ahead, was close enough, get the DRS, pass him, I knew it was done because Charles didn't have the straightaway speed, even with DRS, to get to Max. And so I knew that the cat and mouse would stop at that point in regards to the DRS line. I did find it interesting that they both were thinking about that coming down to that line, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah.
I mean, to some extent. I mean, I think if you got a bunch of people behind you and you can't be brake checking people behind you, but if it's two guys coming into a corner and they're fighting it out, let them fight it out. However, I mean, no matter what, racing is a strategy.
Right.
It's a strategy when you pit. It's a strategy on tires. It used to be a strategy with fuel, but it's a strategy. And so this DRS that they're allowing these guys to use a number of times throughout the lap, it is a strategy. And we've seen this not only play out here, but we've seen it play out elsewhere. I think that Sunday it just highlighted just the exaggeration of the DRS. I mean, we've seen it where guys didn't want to pass somebody because they knew they would have DRS going down the straightaway. And then, because you're like, well, he could do that pass right there. Why wouldn't he pass right there? It's because he's going to have DRS. And so then he can just pass him on the straightaway. He can get that extra amount ahead. The other guy won't have it. So it's always been a strategy, in my opinion. I think Sunday we just saw it play out a little bit more exaggerated.
Yeah, I would agree on that. I definitely like it too. I almost feel like it's almost a little bit of a, I don't know if I want to say video game aspect that kind of goes into it, but I kind of feel like it kind of makes, just takes the strategy higher, like you said. So I think it just adds another element to racing and kind of how it can be used or defended with or against, and it's a nice addition to this year, I guess, that it's not been that obvious before in the past. And also, I think the new cars kind of give the ability to fight back after you do get past, even without DRS, where I feel like the past years we've seen where basically once you got by, they're by. It was always hard to fight back. So I think the new concept of cars also kind of play into that as well, and just kind of ultimately, as a whole, this has really made the racing a lot more interesting and fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think these cars, I think we have seen that you have the ability to follow closer. And I think that's what's allowing that fight back. Because previously the cars were just you get up behind another car, and the problem then became you couldn't stay there because of the wash, and the cars would not handle well, and so you'd have to drop back about a second, and then you kind of have to let your tires cool down a little bit because they're overheated, and then you warm the tires back up, and then you give it another go. And so I think that's what was maybe preventing the racing from being as dynamic as what we've seen, because you push back in the field a little bit. I mean, Lewis couldn't even pass the Haas car.
Right.
And then towards the end of the race, you had Lando and Ocon going at it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's right.
And Ocon passed Lando. I think it was on the last lap, and Lando tried to get the DRS there back to get that position back. But so I think it is enabling a more watchable race, in my opinion. I think we're also starting to see some more failures. I think we've seen more failures this year. When you think about Fernando Alonso dropped out. Who else was it? Somebody else dropped out of that race.
Valtteri.
Oh yeah, Bottas dropped out, and then somebody else, I think. But it's interesting that we're starting to see these issues pop up, and I kind of like it, to be honest with you, because it brings back that nature of the sport that's unpredictable. Because you had Alonso up there fighting in the top 6, top 7, and he finishes. Yeah, he was DNF. Ricardo retired as well.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, they all went out basically the same lap.
Yeah, it was like Ricardo out, Alonso out, Bottas, I think, was a couple. Yeah, Bottas was, I think, Bottas was the exact next lap.
Okay.
Yeah. So you had like 3 cars go out in the span of 2 laps. And so that's bringing that dynamic of the sport when the sport was in the 2000s, 90s and 2000s, where they could drop a new engine into a car for every race, drop a new engine in for qualifying, and then put a new one in for the race. And they were on the edge, like they were running 19,000 RPMs in a race. And they were on the edge of explosion for the race. And we just brought this, and if you go back and watch some of these old races, you see that. You don't know if your guy's going to finish.
Right. Yeah. That's very true. I hadn't thought about that, or thought about how many DNFs we actually have had. But yeah, and it does make an element of surprise. You look at Red Bull at Bahrain, dropping out just with a few laps left, and it's like, oh my goodness, like yeah. So it definitely adds excitement to it for sure, because it's so random and out of nowhere. It's like, oh wow.
So let me ask you a question. Due to the race, our 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton finished 10th. Do you think Lewis struggling hurts Formula One, or is it good for Formula One?
I think it hurts probably more than it helps. One, he is a star to so many people. I mean, probably one of the most popular drivers. And also he is kind of a lightning rod for, you either kind of love him or hate him in a sense too. So, but typically, you don't really buy tickets to hope that a driver is, not finishing in the points. You want to see, you usually are going to root for somebody instead of root against somebody. That's what kind of brings money and attention in, I think. So, yeah, I think it hurts overall. Yeah, in my opinion, at least. How do you feel about that?
I see it both ways. I see it elevating these new superstars. I mean, Max, it gives him an opportunity a little bit to be in the light as the reigning world champion. It gives Charles an opportunity to be in the spotlight. Sainz be in the spotlight. So I think it does kind of raise that opportunity for these other guys to step up and be that new, what's the word I'm looking for? Be that new personality in the sport. I don't think anybody has the polarizing personality that Lewis does. Maybe Max. I mean, Max is brash and he speaks his mind, and that's good.
True.
Charles, Charles and Carlos, they're more representing a brand of Ferrari, and Ferrari will put the kibosh on that.
That's true. Yeah.
I think George finished top 5 in this last race, but you don't hear a lot
Hmm.
about him finishing top 5. So I don't think there's a big following behind George, but it's not that following like you would see of a world champion just yet.
Hmm.
And then you have like the people's champion of McLaren and Lando and Danny Rick, but with McLaren
Hmm.
being off, it's obviously a little bit of a disappointment. But
Hmm.
but it also, I mean, I think you have the opportunity to bring in some teams like Haas back in the top 10.
I know, right?
It's
Yeah.
so I think it's good in the way of visibility for other teams, opens up opportunities for other teams to win. I mean,
Hmm.
I think we're going to see a winner outside the Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes camp this year. I think one of these other teams is going to sneak in and win a race or two easily. I could
Yeah.
see AlphaTauri winning a race
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah. I could too.
I could see Alpine winning another race this year. So
Hmm.
it'll be an interesting year going forward. I'm looking forward to it. We've got Australia next. Any thoughts as we head into Australia in a couple of days on who your pick is going to be going into the race, and maybe just overall excitement for seeing the Australian Grand Prix?
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a couple years since we've been there, so
Exactly.
definitely excited to see it. Like we kind of touched on a little bit earlier, but new track layout. They widened some corners, eliminated chicane, um, different things like that. So it should be a much faster track. They're trying to make it where it's, the passing ability is higher than what it's been in the past. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. I think at this point, I'm kind of just riding with Charles for now. So he's gotten off to a really good start this year, and Ferrari seems to be legit contenders for um, both championships, really. I think Charles Leclerc is um, right now at the top of his game and has a car to support that as well. So I'm excited to kind of see how they perform. Also, going to be interested to see how Mercedes and even the Mercedes powered cars how they do there
It's back, yeah.
in Australia. So they seem to be off the pace of everybody else, but maybe they'll start turning it around. And I think Mercedes said that they were going to bring some upgrades to this race instead of the following one. So who knows? Maybe they start putting it together pretty quickly. So it'll all be interesting to watch for sure.
I wonder if they're going to bring some side pods back.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know. I for I I'm kind of torn. I think the 4 DRS zones. I think that favors the straight line speed of that Red Bull.
True.
So I think I'm gonna have to go with Max again, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Max. I know it's probably a cheeky pick, um, just being world champion, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm gonna go Max, and you're gonna go Charles. So we're gonna keep those two up at the top to battle it out for the win in Melbourne.
Yes.
Well, Steven, that's all I've got, brother. I don't have anything else on the list here. Do you have anything that you need to hit on, or kind of came up in the train of thought as we kind of went through the show today?
No, no, think we kind of covered everything that I was thinking on. So excited for Australia and the rest of the season. So I think we got another good one this year. So I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. So I'm ready. I'm ready to see the Australian GP. Although I don't know if I'm ready for the timing, because it's going to be in the middle of the night, and it's the
I forgot
first
about that.
time. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny because we are so used to over the past, because they've not been to Asia the last 2 years. They've not been to Australia the last 2 years. So everything has been within that 6 to 7 hour window. And now we are about to, yeah, FP1 will be at 10 o'clock at night. FP2 will, oh, wait. Yeah, FP2 will be at 1 a.m. Qualifying will be at 1 a.m. And the race is going to be at midnight.
Yes.
Are you are you planning on staying up for any of that?
Planning, no, but it might work out to where I do. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm thinking for the, well, I don't know. I was thinking for the race I may, but man, that's a hard one.
It is.
When I can just watch it, wake up at like 6 o'clock in the morning to watch it.
Right.
But then you have to stay off social media.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the only bad part. So
That's true. Turn off your alerts if you have any.
exactly, yeah. Make sure to do that going into the weekend. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, midnight Central Standard Time is going to be the race time. So just FYI. So Stephen, at least it's 1 o'clock your time, so you're already in the next day.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So, well, all right, man. Well, thank you for your feedback today and thoughts. I think it just seems like Formula One keeps picking up, especially in America. 3 races in America next year. The only other country to have more than 1 race is Italy. And I think that says a lot about where the sport's going and the growth of the sport, and it's exciting. And it's really giving us an opportunity to get to races now. And so I think it's an exciting time to be digging into the sport of Formula One for all those newcomers, and then for us old guys. It's just great to see it growing because I've waited for this. So now if we
Right.
can just get an American driver.
Yeah. That's the next thing.
So come on, Colton Herta.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Well, Stephen, thanks, and we'll be talking soon. And as we always say, keep the wheels pointed in the right direction.